All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're taking a close look at a really short but incredibly intense passage from the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verses 13 through 21. It's this powerful prophecy that paints an unforgettable picture of a society just completely unraveling from the inside.
So let's kick things off with this question, because it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about. What happens when a society's problems get so deep that it literally starts to eat itself alive? Now, this isn't some new 21st century question. It's the exact theme Isaiah is tackling in this ancient and frankly chilling warning.
Okay, so the first part of this prophecy, verses 13 to 17, it doesn't waste any time. Isaiah just gets right to the diagnosis, and it's a brutal one. He says the nation's core problems are unrepentant pride and a total, catastrophic failure of its leadership. Starting with verse 13, Isaiah points out that even though the nation has been smitten, struck by its enemies like Assyria, the people refuse to see it as a wake-up call. They're not repenting, and they're definitely not turning to God for help. And this is the absolute key to the whole thing. They see all these hardships not as a warning, but just as bad luck, a fact of life. And this failure, this inability to see the message behind the mess, is what causes the judgment to get worse and worse. So what's the consequence for being so stubborn? Well, verse 14 lays it out, and it is swift and severe. The Lord will cut off head and tail, branch and rush in one day. I mean, what a phrase. It's this poetic way of saying the entire social structure is about to completely collapse, and it's going to happen fast.
So you're probably asking, what are the head and tail? Well, Isaiah tells us in the very next verse. The head is the political leadership, the ancient and honorable. But the tail? That's the prophet who teaches lies. In other words, the corrupt religious leaders. The prophecy is clear. Both are getting cut off.
And then you have the phrase branch and rush. This is just classic Hebrew imagery. The branch refers to the very top of a tall palm tree. That's your elite. And the rush? That's a worthless reed you'd find in a marsh, representing the lowest of the low. The metaphor is just brilliant. It shows that this judgment is going to hit everyone from the penthouse to the pavement. Nobody is safe. Verse 16 draws a straight line from the cause to the effect. There's no ambiguity here at all. The leaders are leading the people down the wrong path, and because of that, the people who follow them are walking straight into destruction. Simple as that. And by verse 17, you see just how bad it's gotten. The judgment is so intense because the wickedness isn't just in the leadership anymore. It's everywhere. Isaiah says mercy is withheld even from the most vulnerable, the young men, the fatherless, the widows, the very people society is supposed to protect. Why? The reason is just devastating, because every one is an evildoer. And this section ends with this powerful, haunting refrain that just hammers home the point, like a drumbeat of doom. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. It's this somber reminder that as terrible as all this is, it's just getting started. Which brings us to our next section, verses 18 and 19. And here, the central metaphor shifts. Isaiah moves from the idea of a societal collapse to something even more visceral, an uncontrollable, all-consuming fire. And that fire is wickedness itself.
In verse 18, we get this powerful image. Wickedness, Isaiah says, burns like a fire. It starts small, devouring the briars and thorns. You can think of those as the hidden sins. But a fire doesn't stay small, does it? It spreads, and soon it kindles the thickets of the forest, engulfing the whole population.
You can literally track the path of this fire. It ignites with the briars and thorns, those sins festering in the dark corners. Then it spreads to the thickets as everyday people start to embrace the evil. And the result? The entire nation goes up in smoke, just consumed and darkened by its own sin. And then verse 19 gives us this absolutely chilling idea. The land is darkened, sure, but then it says the people themselves become the fuel for the fire. Think about that. Society starts feeding on itself. Sin leads to crime, violence, people plundering each other just to get by. The verse ends with this gut punch of a line that just shows how far everything has fallen. No man shall spare his brother. Every social bond, any sense of compassion or community, it's gone. It has become a war of all against all. And that leads us straight into the horrifying climax of this prophecy in verses 20 and 21.
This is where the internal conflict becomes this literal, graphic image of a nation actually consuming itself. I mean, listen to this image from verse 20. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. It is absolutely shocking. Metaphorically, yeah, it describes a society so divided and desperate that it's destroying its own strength. But it also points to a grim and very literal reality.
And if you think this is just hyperbole, it's not. These cross-references from Deuteronomy and Lamentations show that this was a known prophesied consequence of turning away from God. It literally happened during brutal military sieges when starvation drove people to the unthinkable.
Verse 21 then lays out this self-consumption in political terms. Manasseh and Ephraim, two tribes descended from the sons of Joseph, literal brothers in their ancestry, they turn on each other in a vicious civil war. They are literally fighting themselves.
And then, just when you think it couldn't get any more irrational, these two warring brothers find common ground on one single thing. They team up to attack their other brother, the southern kingdom of Judah. The only thing that can unite them is their desire to expand the war against their own family. It's madness.
And the passage ends by hitting us with that ominous refrain one last time. After all of it, the corrupt leaders, the fire of wickedness, the civil war, the self-destruction, the judgment still isn't over. His hand is stretched out still, and it just leaves you with this heavy, unresolved sense of dread.
So Isaiah lays out this terrifying cycle, right? Pride leads to corrupt leadership. That sparks a fire of wickedness, and that fire causes a nation to tear itself apart from the inside. It's an ancient text, for sure, but its warning leaves us with a pretty provocative question for today. What makes this ancient warning resonate so loudly right now?